welcome, welcome, welcome. This is our debrief on the Virginia elections. So, like any great debrief, we've got to talk about where we've come from, and then we're going to use that to develop the plan for where we're going. We've got our partners at the Worker Circle who are here, and they will be sharing some marvelous organizing ideas that they have. So I'm calling the presentation tonight just simply the road to Richmond, because the road to 2024 is going right through Richmond. Now, there was a primary election on June 20th, and all 140 seats in the Virginia General Assembly are up for election. Now, there were not 140 primaries, there were very few primaries. So currently, when we look at the Virginia General Assembly, the Senate is controlled by the Dems. And when we look at the House, as you can see, we are 4 seats down in the Virginia House. When we look at the new districts in Virginia, the way the districts were drawn, there are 37 districts that are very Republican leaning, they're red. There are 31 districts. As you can see, they tend to look geographically very small, but they're packed with people that are Democratic. And then all the gray districts you see, these are new districts. There is no incumbent. So what we will be looking at is, what can we do in these new districts? Now, I'm putting on my National Women's Political Caucus of Virginia hat for a moment. NWPC Virginia is a 501c4 organization that does endorse candidates. 12 of our 15 endorsed women won on Tuesday night. Now, the number one win that everybody probably has heard about, or you've at least heard about the race, is in Senate District 13, where Cherise Aird won over the incumbent Senator Joe Morrissey, and it was a resounding win, 69% of the vote, and she won in every district. So that was a marvelous race. We were very, very concerned about that district because it is a Democratic leaning district, but Mr. Morrissey was a, quote, pro-life Democrat, and we knew he would probably not support reproductive choice and reproductive rights. Another race that everybody who knows everything about politics said we could not win was Senate District 18, where Senator Louise Lucas found herself running against fellow incumbent Senator Lionel Spruill in a district where 64% of the district was his district. I'm going to give major kudos right now to Janice Gay and the entire Virginia Beach Democracy Center phone banking team. This crew laid down 29,000 C3 calls for Louise Lucas. And when we realized we were going to need to name names and we couldn't just encourage people to vote, They went out, they knocked on doors, they talked to people, they let them know that a sorority sister was running, and they were able to really blunt Senator Sproul's influence in his own district. And Louise won 53% of the vote. She beat Senator Sproul by 1,100 votes. Senator Favola had a very, very good night, winning 84% of her vote. And then down in Southwest Virginia, down in Roanoke, we had an almost unexpected win with Trish Boyd White, who took 57% of the vote out of Roanoke. We also had a win with Russet Perry in Northern Virginia, 65% of the vote. And Stella Pikarsky took out an old line Northern Virginia incumbent, Senator George Barker, with 52% of the vote. So congratulations to our Senate candidates who will be going into the general. And what is interesting in most of these races, these women, when they win in November, will be replacing older white men. So the gender, the face of the Virginia Senate is about to change. Now, over on the House side, this is where we're going to need to pick up seats. Adele McClure, first-time candidate, won 90% of her vote. Since she is in Arlington County, Adele is probably not really going to need our help in the general. We also had a Northern Virginia win with Laura Jane Cohen. She took 66% of the vote. Amy Loeffler won 70% of the vote. And another personal delight for me is Susanna Gibson down in Enrico, who won 55% of the vote in her district. And then our last two candidates, Ray Cousins, who is in Richmond, nearly 63% of the vote. And she had two incumbents, including a sitting city council person. And then finally, in Petersburg with Lashkary's heir, Kimberly Pope Adams, who took 61% of the vote. She's in House District 82, not 822. Getting a little crazy there. At one point, Kimberly Pope Adams was actually thinking about dropping out of the race because it was so expensive, so time consuming. She's a single mom and she didn't know if she could keep going. But again, she pulled up her bootstraps and just decided, you know what? I started this thing, I'm going to finish it. Since her district is going to be a tough one because it is not just Petersburg, it's Petersburg and several rural counties. We're going to need to put in some effort on that race as well. Now, there were a number of NWPC Virginia endorsed candidates who, well, actually, this will be our full slate. So some of the candidates here did not have primaries. So Kathy Berry in Senate District 2, La Cherise Aird, Senator Ghazala Hashmi in Senate District 15, Senator Louise Lucas. We've got a newcomer in SD 20, which is over at Hampton Roads, Senator Mamie Locke in Hampton Roads. Danica Rome is moving up from delegate and running for Senate. Her district is in Northern Virginia. And we already talked about the last three, Russet Harris, Ella Pekarsky, and Barbara Favola, who successfully won their primaries. On the House side, there are some new names that you did not see. Again, these candidates did not have primary opponents, so they are just in the general. So Elizabeth Bennett Parker, Vivian Watts, Lily Franklin, who, if you are in Virginia, may remember Lily as Sam Razul's LA. And then Rachel Levy out in House District 59, Sarah Ratliff, Shelley Simons, Jessica Anderson, Deborah Gardner, Betsy Carr. Those are our other endorsed candidates. And as I said, they did not have primary elections. Now, NWPC can only endorse women. Putting on my Center for Common Ground hat now. Center for Common Ground cannot endorse any candidates at all. So what I have done is I have put in candidate name as a reference and their location and whether or not they are running for an open seat. Even though they are listing some of these districts as being leaning one way or the other, when we look at the number of BIPOC voters in these districts, turnout is going to be very, 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 very important. So the areas where we're going to be concentrating, the Chesterfield Richmond area. So there are two races on the Senate side, 15 and 16. So Senator Hashmi and Skylar Van Valkenburg is trading up from a delegate seat. Over in South Side, and we have a democracy center there for some of those counties, is kind of a partial new area for Clint Jenkins. In Senate District 21, Angelia Williams Graves is in Norfolk, and that is one of those new open seats. And I know many people worked on Aaron Rouse's campaign. He is running for Senate again, only this time in a brand new district. So it is an open seat, and that seat is in Virginia Beach. We've got a tough seat. This was Josh Cole's old seat, Stafford, Spotsylvania, Fredericksburg. Again, they've moved the district, and there is no incumbent in that seat. And then we have Danica Rome, another person trading up from Senate, from delegate to Senate, in that really tricky Prince William Manassas area that is an open seat. Saddam Aslan Salim in Fairfax City, and Falls Church, an open seat. And we still do not have a declared winner in Senate District 29. Right now, the two candidates that are in a primary in that district are separated by a total of 46 votes. So these are the Senate seats with large BIPOC populations where we will be working on turnout. because we do have a Nova Regional Democracy Center, not only will we be able to phone bank and text, we will also be able, with your help, to put canvassers on the ground. In Northern Virginia, 2 open seats, House District 7 and 22. So names you may hear: Karen Keys Gamara and Travis Nembard. And then again, Lily Franklin out in the Montgomery, Roanoke County, that is an open seat. Susanna Gibson is in that Henrico Goochland area, that is an open seat. And many people from previous years remember Josh Cole. And again, he is in that very tricky Stafford area. Chesterfield is always a challenge to work in Chesterfield. And Nadarius Clark has moved to a brand new district, which is in Suffolk and the Isle of Wight, into an open seat. Phil Hernandez is in a new district in Norfolk, which is an open seat. And Kelly Converse Fowler and Michael Feggins are in Virginia Beach. So our Virginia Beach Democracy Center, you folks are going to have a ton of work literally right at home. You will be working in Virginia Beach and in Norfolk, and then we'll be working on recruiting people to go over to Suffolk. Now, what's our schedule? Postcard addresses on the C3 and the C4 side will be available on August 15th. The C4 side may be available sooner. Phone banks for the C3 and the C4 will open up on August 21st. Early voting, remember, Virginia has 45 days of early voting. Early voting begins on September 22nd for the November election. We will begin texting on September 1st. So some of the areas where we're working may change a little. It may switch from one organization to the other. Center for Common Ground, we work on turning out BIPOC voters. So initially, I've looked at districts where we have more than 30% BIPOC voters in the district. There's a couple of other races that we are looking at that, depending on the demand for postcard addresses and the willingness of people to phone bank, we may actually be able to add a couple of additional districts. I'm going to skip that slide and go down to Virginia postcards, flipping on my C4 hat. These are currently the postcards that we have for Virginia. NWPC has interns, and one of the interns is an artist. There is a possibility that we may introduce a third and possibly a fourth new design for postcards for the general. Center for Common Ground, we have our standard postcards, and many people still have them left over. So we will encourage you to use your Center for Common Ground postcards. Now, a very important caveat: as long as you are using our voter letter system and our 501c3 scripts, you may use the Center for Common Ground postcards. If you want to go over to the more partisan side, you cannot use our postcards. All right, now I'm wrapping up. how you can help. On the C4 side, you can volunteer and or you can donate to our endorsed candidates. On the C3 side, you can postcard, phone bank, or text, or donate to our Virginia campaign. So I'm going to stop now, stop sharing my screen, and entertain any questions. So Josie, are there questions in the chat I need to answer?
I don't think so. While I'm looking, I see Edwan has their hand raised. And
there's Edwan and Nancy. So Edwan and then Nancy. And then Jacqueline. Hey, okay. Edwan. Hey.
So one thing we did not mention was a comeback from a familiar face. Miss Jennifer Carroll Foyles is coming back around. She ended up winning her primary against Hala Ayala on the 20th as well. So she'll be gracing the halls of the General Assembly once more.
All right.
And then,
well, yes. That would be another.
I know we're not talking about Republicans right now, but I mean, anytime we can say we got rid of Amanda Chase is a win in my book.
well, Democrat, Republican, just human. Yes.
I'll take a Glenn Sturdivant over an Amanda Chase.
So will everybody. Yes. Now, Jennifer Carroll Foy has not asked for an NWPC endorsement. We don't know if she will. That is the reason she was not mentioned. And she's in a district and she's got enough money. She's pretty good to go. So that was the only reason that I did not include her. But yes, that would be one more Senate case. Nancy. Why?
Hang on, sorry.
Hey.
And I might have missed this because I got distracted by something, but are there any races where you think both the C3 and C4 will be postcarding or no?
At this point, I am not sure. Remember, the election was Tuesday. I can only do so much so quickly. So I'm going to say it is a possibility, but right now I'm going to try to keep it very, 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 very separate.
Okay. And then I
mean, if we have so many volunteers, then the C3, there may be a few races that we will simply add because we've got enough BIPOC voters. Remember, on the C3 side, we turn out BIPOC voters.
Yep. Okay. And then I noticed that Elisa just posted a question about postage going up, and I was going to mention that.
Yes.
So I'm going to put in the chat the information. It's going up July 9th. So it'll let us write.
So if you're going to postcard, buy your stamps now. They don't rot. Buy them, put them away.
Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Nancy. Jacqueline.
Hi, Andrea. I would like to, for a minute, put this or ask how to put this in a national context. What are the top 2 or 3 points to make to our people here in Colorado about why they should engage in these state elections, other than the fact that it's good for Virginia?
Well, number one, Virginia is the last southern state standing where abortion is still safe and legal. That is one reason. Reason number 2, in 2021, Virginia had a phenomenal legislative cycle, and we basically introduced and passed our own version of the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. So while the other 49 states don't have that, we do in Virginia, along with 45 days of early voting. When the statewide went to the dark side, as did the House. We saw 40 pieces of legislation introduced to literally overturn all of the voting rights advancements that we made. The other thing that has happened is our governor realizing the only part of voting that he has any control over whatsoever was restoration of rights, has basically returned us to 1902, where the governor is the god of voting, and based on the governor's whim, he can decide to restore someone's voting rights or not. And here's the big reason. We need to make sure, I'm putting on my 501c4 hat now, so we need to make sure that we hand a stinging, ringing defeat to the governor of Virginia, because if he were to win the Virginia election, he is already comparing himself to Ronald Reagan. He will have a narrative that said he took the Virginia blue trifecta and turned it red. And Glenn Youngkin will be on the national stage running for president in 2024. You don't want that.
Thank you. You're right, we don't.
You're very, very welcome. I saved the best for last. He was able to fool Northern Virginia into believing that he's a moderate. He is not. Lori. Unmute.
Yeah, okay, sorry, took me a minute. I was hoping to be able to postcard on June 15th. I'm sorry, not June, July 15th. July 15th at the Liberty Amendments Month event in the town of Vienna, Virginia. And I saw that you say that the earliest you're going to have anything, any addresses available is August 15th. So do you have any suggestions for?
Lori, how many addresses do you need?
Up to 250.
Okay.
Can you give me 250 addresses so that I can?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
All right,
yes,
wonderful.
Yes,
Thank
we can handle a very, very small number of addresses. We are figuring by August 15th, everything will be loaded into our voter letters. All of the labels will be created for a very small amount like that. We can accommodate that.
Okay, and the hope would be competitive districts, if possible.
Lori, every district in Virginia at this point is competitive. All those seats where I wrote open, they're competitive. If the vote doesn't turn out, that seat could go the other way.
Okay, great. So I sent an email to Center for Common Ground. Should I email you, Andrea, and say I'm the one that wants the addresses by July 15th?
I just put my email in the chat, so Lori, email me.
Yeah. Okay, will do. Thank you.
And I'll get you hooked up. Stephen.
Hey, Andrea.
Hey.
Glad to be here and glad to be where we are in Virginia. Really smashing progressive victories. I just wanted to mention a couple of races. One, you mentioned both of their names, but I wanted to highlight Saddam Salim. He beat, surprisingly, nobody predicted this. He beat a long time incumbent state senator named Chap Peterson, and Chap was opposed to a ban on assault rifles. He was opposed to taking down Confederate monuments. He was opposed to repeal of right to work laws. And this was a huge upset by a young Bangladeshi immigrant who was homeless when he came to this country with his family. And nobody predicted. There's an article in today's Falls Church News Press, which had endorsed Saddam. And the editor and publisher I talked to last Saturday at an event, and I asked him, what did he think about Saddam's chances? And he said he didn't think he had a chance to win. That's sort of a typical response of the prognosticating class. So Saddam came out of nowhere. He is now in a very blue district, and he is likely to win. Another race, which Andrea touched on, I just wanted to emphasize the significance of it, and that's Jennifer Carroll Foy. She was running against a fellow former delegate, both of whom had run for higher office in 2021. Her opponent was Hala Ayala. Jennifer, at least in Northern Virginia, ran a very effective last-minute television ad, which talked about what Hala did in 2021 when she was running for lieutenant governor in the primary, which was basically to sign a written pledge that she would never take any money from the big monopoly electric utility, Dominion Virginia Energy. And then she turned around and took $100,000 from them. And that's what the ad was about, not only the amount of money, but the hypocrisy about saying one thing and then doing another. And Jennifer walloped Hala, as did Saddam with Chap, and coupled with all the other progressives winning, like Stella beating George Barker, you had a situation where younger, mostly women, but also people like Saddam, who are male, but who are people of color, winning against longtime incumbents, which, people didn't predict really.
Yep.
So I just wanted to, echo what Andy was saying. This was a really wonderful outcome in terms of if you're a progressive in Virginia.
Right, right. And as my uncle told me when I was 10 years old, he who wins elections is he or she who gets their voters out. Thank you, Stephen. And Stephen, you and I will be talking later. Gail.
So am I correct that Deborah Gardner still has no opponent in her race?
So far, yes.
When is the deadline?
I don't know.
I thought it was today.
Well, then she may have a write-in opponent. Yep.
So I never thought I would live to see the day when we had a Democrat running unopposed in Chesterfield County.
Chesterfield. It's a new day in Virginia. Yep. Barb.
Hi, as a member of the phone bank team, I'd like to put out an invitation or maybe a plea. There are only 4 or 5 of us that are trainers or coaches on the phone banks. And anybody who has done a lot of phone banking, I'm going to put my email in the chat. Please be in touch. I'd like to be able to train a few more people so that we can be able to spread the wealth of coaching these phone banks. I hope you will consider it. Our team is a lot of fun, and we meet with Andrea periodically to get some support and advice from her. So please consider July 12th as a training opportunity. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Barb. All right, Joanne.
Hi there, this is all so exciting. And our group, Local Majority, has written a bunch of research papers for the candidates, for any candidates on here. I put my email in there, joannelulin@gmail. Please write me so we can send you the papers. I'll also be at the Women's Conference at the end of July, so you'll be able to get them as well then, but we would love to email them to you. They're on all the topics and how the truth about Youngkin and the Republicans and everything. And cute, short talking points. So when you're on the doors, you can do, because we're in California. Anyway, what I wondered is if Andrea or whoever is working with you, if you can send us a list of the most important candidates, because we're also putting together a group to come knock doors.
All right.
But we also want to make sure they have our papers, because
Yes.
it has, they're very well written in there. And I only say that because I'm the coordinator. I don't write them.
All right, Joanne.
I
we
would
can
love
do
to
that.
know the list, which I'm sure everyone here would, so we can, direct our attention.
All right. Very,
Thank
very
you
good.
so much for everything you've done and everything everyone on this call has done.
All right. Thank you. All right, Pamela, I need to bring up my next speaker literally in a minute. So hopefully it's very quick.
Yes, I'm with Grassroots STEMS HQ. I don't know if this is the place to do it, but I want to go ahead and reach out. I'm going to email Barb to see if it's a way that we can do a partnership. I don't have the authority to get it, but I'm just letting you know.
I've already gotten the first phone call, so we're working on it. Thank you, Pamela.
Thank you.
All right. I am delighted. I am thrilled. I love it when people come up with amazing, wonderful ideas. I want to introduce a very, very dear friend, Noelle D'Amico from the Workers Circle, and she will be telling you about Center for Common Ground as democracy centers. The Workers Circle now has Democracy Circle. So Noelle, take it away.
Andrea, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. What a phenomenal gathering this is. What a step of victory on the way to victory. I am so glad to be with you tonight. And I am here with two colleagues, Noah Barron and Maya Strong. We're from the Worker Circle, a Jewish social justice organization that was founded about 120 years ago by Eastern European Jewish immigrants who were fleeing autocracy and persecution and looking for a place that they could build a truly multiracial egalitarian democracy. And they came here to the United States, and that history drives our work as a Jewish social justice organization today. When we were thinking about what it means to stay in motion, not only get in motion, but to stay in motion, to involve people of every age, and to welcome everyone who wants to fight for that multiracial, multicultural democracy so long promised and yet to be delivered. We kept thinking, how can we better put our people into action? And so we became a partner with the Center for Common Ground. And we are thrilled to be colleagues with you in the work of phone banking and texting and postcarding. Tonight, we're here to introduce you to an idea, a practice called democracy circles, as a way to gather and organize people for ongoing action and reflection for our democracy. Democracy circles are a way to build both power and community, and they work in complementary fashion to democracy centers, and they can be a way to structure and sustain involvement in the postcarding, text banking, and other efforts, phone banking that you've been doing with the Center for Common Ground. So without further ado, let's dive in. And I'm delighted to introduce Noah Barron and Maya Strong, who are going to walk you through what is a democracy circle and how can these be put to use. Take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us here tonight. My name is Noah Barron, and I'm the social justice organizer at the Worker Circle.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maya Strong, and I am a college organizer at the Worker Circle.
So we're going to pop a question into the chat as well as read it aloud, and I would love if you all are willing to answer it in the chat. So the question is, when working for change, is it easier for you to get started or to sustain the work? So I would love to see some answers flying into the chat. I know it might take a moment. I see Josie saying get started. Some folks, okay, and then Dean saying sustain. Other answers? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of sustain, easier to sustain. Some get started. All right, so we're having a mix of both here, although I'm seeing mostly folks saying sustain. So thanks everyone for answering this question in the chat for us. And you can feel free to keep putting your answers in the chat.
So the great news about democracy circles is that they tackle both. They help you get started and provide ongoing structure that helps you sustain your work and also connect to others. So what exactly is a democracy circle?
A democracy circle is a small group of around 7 people, though some have more and some have less, who join together regularly to demand the democracy we need, a truly multiracial, multicultural democracy that represents all of us. Each democracy circle is initiated by a circle convener who picks a meeting time and place and brings together people they know in person or on Zoom to take action and to explore how we can counter attacks on our democracy right now. We provide all of the resources and training. You bring your passion and your people.
And before we move on, I want to share one of my favorite quotes. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has. Margaret Mead. Democracy circles can be those groups of thoughtful, committed individuals.
So the idea for democracy circles grew out of the real needs of the people in our activist community. In January 2022, a group of worker circle members, including myself, engaged in nonviolent civil disobedience in Washington, D.C. We blocked the driveway to the Capitol immediately after the Freedom to Vote John R. Lewis Act was sidelined by the filibuster in the Senate. We, alongside some of our partner organizations, wanted to show that we are not giving up the fight for voting rights and democracy reform legislation. So on the train back from that protest, a few of our college network students, Noelle and myself, were having a discussion, wondering what would it take for more people to engage in meaningful strategic action on an ongoing basis. It was Murley, an NYU student at the time, who brought up the point that activism can often feel lonely and overwhelming. People want to feel like they have a community and know that when they act, they are doing so in a way that is truly impactful. And thus the idea for democracy circles was born. Democracy circles are a way to keep people connected, build community, and act together.
Thank you, Noah. So when thinking about why democracy circles are important, it's important to just realize that they give you support and they tell you step by step how you can create change. They serve as a guide during the scary time of rising fascism in our country, while also providing a space to deepen your understanding about voting rights and democracy. For me, being that I'm from Georgia, I felt so frustrated looking, and I still do feel extremely frustrated looking at all of the legislative roadblocks that face my community. And democracy circles and their resources allowed me to do concrete things to combat these obstacles. So when it comes to resources, we provide democracy circles with thorough instructions and guidelines to help you get started. No need to worry about how to gather or take action.
Maya, would you mind going to the next slide?
Yes.
Thanks. So our resources include 4 things. 1, a getting started guide with lots of helpful tips and tricks. 2, an outreach tips guide that can help you get people to join your democracy circle. 3, discussion resources that you can use to help guide your conversations. And 4, take action resources that give you specific actions that you can take to help fight for our democracy.
Alrighty, so here is a picture of one of those resources, and some of the discussion resources are articles you can read together, some are videos you can watch, and some, like this one here, encourage you to share your own stories. For example, the resources include a poem by Nikki Giovanni, an examination of the latest Brennan Center Voting Laws Roundup, an article that explains how federal courts work, and questions that invite you to share how your own cultural background inspires you in this fight for voting rights and democracy. Each resource comes with a set of questions, as you can see here, that help you guide your conversations.
So this democracy circle model is flexible and adaptable. I'm going to share with you 3 models for what a democracy circle can look like. We have a congregational model, a kitchen table model, and an into the streets model. Each of these examples comes from one of our real democracy circles. So the first is the congregational model. So Nancy's Justice Committee at her synagogue wanted to get more involved in fighting for our democracy. They gathered 11 people on Zoom, and together they read an article about how the anti-abortion movement eroded our democracy. Then they discussed the article using the questions we provided. Her Justice Committee was already writing postcards with the Center for Common Ground. Our democracy circle model provided context and background information, allowing them to deepen their understanding about the issues they care about.
And our next model is the kitchen table model. So Susan and Barry gathered 2 friends from their area before the Georgia Senate runoff, and together as a democracy circle, they wrote over 200 postcards to Georgia voters with the Center for Common Ground and the Worker Circle. And forming a democracy circle helped them create a safe and welcoming discussion space while they wrote their postcards.
The last model today is the Into the Streets model. Diana invited 5 people in her democracy circle to protest in her area in Northern California. Afterwards, they all meet up for coffee to share stories and reflect.
And when thinking about impact, I always think about how last year, around the time of the Senate runoff in Georgia, I remember feeling so helpless in New York and wanting to do more than just, submitting my absentee ballot again. So with the help of the Center for Common Ground and the Worker Circle, my circle and I came together, as you can see here, to send postcards to Georgia voters, encouraging them to vote in their upcoming election and providing them with the info they needed so they could figure out where to do so. And coincidentally, we sent postcards to the county right next to mine. So after that experience, I felt so empowered using my circle and the Democracy Circle resources to help and create and educate my community.
So I want to share a quote from one of our real Democracy Circle conveners. This is from Art, who lives in California, and Art said, "Democracy circles allow us to share our ideas and feelings with other activists, be heard and hear others, get and give support and have agency, not feel as helpless as we might in the face of rising fascism in this country." If you're interested in starting a democracy circle, you can learn more and sign up at the link we're going to put in the chat now, or you can email me at nbarron@circle.org, which we will also put in the chat so you don't have to memorize that. So I think now we're going to open it up for Q&A. So if there's any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we can answer them for you all.
I don't have a question. I've got a comment. I loved the kitchen table and in the street. And I think those are all possibilities that we can even use in the democracy centers, because it's just a framework for people to get together. And I like that. So thank you very much.
We're so glad to be able to come and share this model. And what I want to say about this, it's capacious and flexible. So you can turn these circles into what you need them to be to get that important work done together. Please feel free to reach out to us with any questions. We're so thrilled to be part of this wonderful Center for Common Ground community with you. Thank you, Andrea, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Noelle. Thank you, Noah. Thank you, Maya. And again, I'm loving the idea. I always get excited when the young people come, because this is why I do this, for the young people. All right, what I'm going to say right now is thank you to everybody who joined us. I'm going to have an opportunity for One last question before we go. We're going to end on time. I am delighted. So are there any other questions? I will still be working with Josie and the rest of my team. Josh, you're going to be in on this too, where we're looking at races, making sure I've got the appropriate race with the appropriate organization. And then more information will be coming out next week. But again, this is a wonderful, wonderful evening. I feel so good about what we were able to do as Center for Common Ground, as National Women's Political Caucus. Again, another shout out to Janice and the phone bank team, which then became the canvassing team, which then became and we're the people that are going out and visiting the polls team. Thank you, thank you, thank you to our phone bank trainers who every Wednesday evening and every Saturday afternoon were there training people on how to use the phone banks. We realized we want to be able to offer something for people who want to be more partisan, and all those folks who, like our faith community, need to remain nonpartisan. We realize the importance of setting up 2 lanes in our work. So thank you, thank you, thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Good evening.